This is Mac OS Ken.
Prelude to an eventful week, an apparent resurgence for iPhone in China, and spatial video is hitting the web. It is Monday, the 28th of October, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Incogni, helping you take back your personal data. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. When Apple Senior VP of Marketing Greg Joswick said on Twitter last week that this week will be an exciting week of announcements, some think he meant that literally. Landing at AppleInsider after his time at iMore, Oliver Haslam is expecting a week of daily press releases as Apple updates the Mac line to accommodate the M4 processor. As for what we can expect, the piece says a new Mac Mini, refreshed iMac, and updated MacBook Pro are all thought to be in the cards, while those hoping for a new MacBook Air are set to have to wait until early next year. The tweet last week from Jaws said that would start on Monday morning, so good morning. Go see what's happening at apple.com/newsroom or, any Apple news site out there, or, any major news site out there, or, check back here tomorrow, I guess. New Macs are not the only hot newness coming from Apple this week. The thing that is likely to affect many more people is iOS 18.1. That is definitely hitting this week, almost definitely hitting today. It's the operating system that'll bring hearing health features for iPhones tied to AirPods Pro 2, and of course, the first glimpses of Apple Intelligence. Excited about Apple's foray into AI is Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives. Apple 3.0 ran part of a note he wrote on Sunday. On Sunday? Marking today as the day Apple Intelligence starts its slow roll, the analyst says, this is the beginning of the consumer AI revolution going through the doors of Cupertino and will kick off a true supercycle for Apple, starting with iPhone 16. Running through a numbered list of positives missed by the naysayers and AAPL haters, what he thinks he gets that they don't is 1. Apple's unmatched installed base of over 2 billion iOS devices with about 300 million iPhones in the window of an upgrade opportunity. 2. A services business worth $2 trillion of valuation, which is increasing its monetization of the customer base. And 3. His belief that consumer AI will go through Apple's ecosystem, with over 20% of the world's population ultimately interacting with AI on an Apple device over the next few years. While he sees roughly 300 million iPhones ready for an upgrade, having not been replaced in over 4 years, he doesn't think that they will all be upgraded this year. The way he and his see it, Apple could sell north of 240 million iPhone units in fiscal year 25 as this AI-driven upgrade cycle takes hold, making this the highest iPhone unit sales year in Apple's history, according to Ives. Now, about 100 million of the roughly 300 million iPhones in the window of upgrade are in China, according to the analyst. While many have worried over the lack of languages besides English for Apple Intelligence and the lack of an LLM partner in China, Ives thinks those issues will be addressed soon. He and his expect a Chinese AI partner to be formally inked over the next few months. Ives' note seems to have been penned with this week's Apple earnings call in mind. The analyst expects the company to report strong iPhone performance for the September quarter, as well as relatively bullish December iPhone demand commentary. Mr. Ives has an outperform rating on Apple shares and a price target of $300, and just for fun, he threw into the note his expectation that in 2025, Apple will be the first company to hit a $4 trillion market cap. With the Wedbush note as lead-in, seems as good a time as any to remind you of the earnings call deets. This Thursday, the 31st of October, Apple will report earnings for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 24, as well as tallying up the full year. Numbers will hit after the bell, about 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Half an hour later at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, Apple execs will pick up the phone and read out numbers, add a bit of color, and do the Q&A thing with analysts. You can hear the call as it happens on Apple's investor site. It will be made available as a podcast soon after, and we will roll around in all of it right here on Friday. Even with increased competition from Huawei and without localization for Apple Intelligence in China, September quarter numbers from IDC show iPhone somewhat resurgent in the Middle Kingdom. It's kind of a good news, bad news thing, actually. The good news for Apple, according to the market tracker, the Cupertino company re-entered the top 5 smartphone companies at second place with the launch of its new iPhone 16 series. Initial sales figures are on par with its predecessor, and the company anticipates that upcoming promotions and the anticipated launch of Apple Intelligence will drive future demand. The bad news, while Apple is back in second, its market share actually shrank a bit. For the September quarter of 23, the firm had a second-place market share of 16.1%. This year, that is down to 15.6%. The Cupertino company was one of only 2 in the top 5 to see its share shrink, the other being fifth-place Honor, which was first place for the same quarter a year ago. Chinese OEMs Vivo, Huawei, and Xiaomi contributed to the 3.8% growth in the Android market, according to IDC, each achieving robust double-digit growth. September marked the 4th consecutive quarter for growth for the smartphone market in China. Despite ongoing economic challenges, says IDC, consumers are highly motivated to purchase new smartphones after 3 years of pent-up demand. The market tracker anticipates continued growth, bolstered by the early release of flagship models from leading brands, as well as the early kickoff of the Singles Day shopping festival. The iPhone 16 line is off the market in Indonesia. A piece from the Wall Street Journal says the country has blocked sales of Apple's latest communicators over what officials say is the company's non-fulfillment of local investment requirements. The journal explains, under an Indonesian policy aimed at supporting domestic industries and reducing dependence on imported products, companies have to meet set requirements for using goods or services sourced from within the country. This can be done via various means, including investments or hiring local workers. The report has the country's industry ministry saying Apple was supposed to have invested roughly $109 million US in the country to be granted a license to sell iPhone 16. By Indonesia's reckoning, though, Apple's investments are a little over $15 million short. People are allowed to purchase iPhone 16 outside the country and bring them in, provided they are for personal use only, not to be traded or sold. None of Apple's other products are subject to such a ban, according to the report. The journal reached out to Apple for comment, but didn't hear back. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Incogni, helping you take back your personal data. Take back from whom? From data brokers, companies who compile info about me and you and everyone we know, then sell it. Info on us can be used to target us with ads, decide some insurance rates, heck, sometimes even steal our identities. You can ask those brokers to take your information down, but you have to know who the brokers are. You have to know what to say if they decline your request. You need time to submit the request to each of them, and you have to be ready to do it again. Since some of them will flush their files on us, then just start building new ones on us. This is what's great about Incogni. They do all of that, and they do it repeatedly. Checking my personal Incogni dashboard, of the nearly 200 requests they have sent on my behalf, 91 have been completed, while 24 of those have my info on their suppression list. That means they will never recollect any personal information that could be associated with me, and they can do the same for you. Make an account, give them permission to work on your behalf, and Incogni goes to work. Might feel weird to give them your info, but your info's out there. Incogni helps you take it back. So do it. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. That is a tremendous savings, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. INCOGNI. Get 60% off an annual plan with code MacOSKen at incogni.com/MacOSKen. Well, you'd have to call this anticlimactic. A piece from Engadget says Apple has won a case against medical tech company Masimo and has been awarded the princely sum of $250. No, I didn't leave off any zeros. According to the report, a federal jury agreed with Apple that a couple of past Masimo watches infringed Apple's design patents. For reasons the piece does not get into, the jury settled on the award of $250, which was the smallest award they were legally allowed to give. Engadget says Apple lawyers reportedly told the court that it wasn't after money anyway. What it was after was an injunction on the sales of Masimo's current smartwatch models. However, the piece continues, the jury determined that those newer models do not violate Apple's intellectual property. Apple is said to be treating this as a victory, which is funny since I'll bet Apple's lawyers wouldn't bend over to pick up $250 they saw on the ground. Seriously, though, what are they going to say? Spatial photos and video are headed to the web. A piece from the site Petapixel says Apple is adding support for those formats to Safari, apparently by year's end. Right now, the report says Apple Vision Pro users who want to view spatial content have to view the actual files, either by capturing them on the device or grabbing the files from someone else through delivery mechanisms such as iMessage or AirDrop. Later this year, the piece says Safari will support spatial stills and video. So if somebody's reading an article on a website using one of Apple's headsets, they will be able to sense depth and dimensionality in any spatial stills and video posted. Shouldn't mess up anything else, though. If you're viewing that content on an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac, or some other more traditional device, stuff will still look flat. Petapixel says Apple has been shifting its entire product strategy to support the capabilities of Vision Pro as it looks forward at what it believes to be the future of visual content. And finally today, perhaps in anticipation of news slowing down toward the end of the year, or maybe figuring we'll need something to take our minds off it, the Cupertino company is adding another game to Apple News Plus. A piece from Mac Rumors says iOS 18.2 will bring daily Sudoku puzzles to the, quote, news, end quote, application. The report says the puzzles will include easy, moderate, and challenging difficulty levels. Players will also be able to track such stats as total number of puzzles solved, fastest completion times per difficulty level, and more. The puzzles are also known to be in iPadOS 18.2, with Mac rumors figuring they will also be in macOS Sequoia 15.2. Those operating system updates are expected sometime in December. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan with code macOSKen at incogni.com/macOSken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.